So remember, this is from 3.1. It is asking us if it's growth or decay. So this first box should be a word. Growth is larger than 1. Decay is less than 1. So this number is more than 1. It's growth. This number is less than 1. It's decay. This one is actually asking for a number. So the number in parentheses. Write these in there. So this one is the 1.49. This one is the 90 over 99. My y-intercept is always my a value, the number out front. So for both of these, there's a secret 1 out front. It's 1. Remember, these graphs curve like this or like this. They don't cross the x-axis, so there is no x-intercept. My domain for both of them is all real numbers. My range is the y values. Remember, it gets really close to 0 on these, but it never crosses, so it's going to be y is greater than 0 for both of them. When it's growth, it's increasing. When it's decay, it's decreasing. So this one is growth. This one is decay. My horizontal asymptote is the point it doesn't cross. Y equals 0 for both of them, because these are related to my range. Okay. Next part is 3.2. It's asking me if it's growth or decay. These numbers are getting bigger, so it's growth. A value is how much it starts at. So this would be the 5820. B value is the second number divided by the first number. So I'm going to take I'm going to do this off to the side. I'm going to do 7158.6 divided by 5820. It gives me 1.23. Then it wants me to write it as an equation. So I'm going to have y equals my a value, 5820, and then parentheses 1.23 to the x. Okay. Moving on, it wants me to draw the graph. It started at 58,000 and it keeps going up, so it looks like this. My vertical intercept is my a value, the 5820. What is the meaning of the 5820? I need to look back at my first page. This told me it was an investment club, and it shows the number of clubs. So the meaning of this for my practical, the practical meaning of my vertical intercept is how many clubs there were in 1990. Wants me to predict the number of clubs in 2010. I need to figure out how many years later. So I'm going to do 2010 minus 1990. Gives me 20. And I'm going to plug 20 into my equation. So I have y equals 5820, parentheses 1.23, to the 20 power. I'm going to type this in. Gives me 365616.02. Okay. it wants me to find how many years it takes to double. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph y equals 5,820 1.23 to the x, and y equals 11,640, and see where they cross. So I go to y equals then I want to go make sure my window is big enough. My x-min doesn't really matter. My x-max, I probably want it to be 20, because I know in the year 2020 it reaches 365,000, so I'm good there. My y-max, I want it to go up to this y value, so I'm going to do 12,000. So I can see it. The larger I make my scale, the faster it graphs. Okay, now that it's graphed, I'm going to go second, trace, all the way down to intersect, because I want to see where they cross. I press enter 3 times, so blue, red, guess, and then, what is that on my screen? Anyways, my answer is 3.3 years. This one wants me to fill in the tables. So if I have a growth factor to growth rate, I want to take my number, subtract 1, and then multiply by 100. So I'm going to take 1.14 minus 1, which gives me 0.14, times 100, turns it into 14%. If I'm going backwards from growth rate, I'm going to take my number, divide by 100, and then add 1. So over here I'm going to do 10.2 divide by 100, which gives me 0.102, and I add 1 to get 1.102. Same thing from this way, so I have 1.05 minus 1, which gives me 0.05, times 100, gives me 5%. Right here, I have my, I'm going from decay factor, so I take 1 minus my number, and then multiply by 100. So I'm going to do 1 minus 0.90, which gives me 0.10 times 10 times 100, gives me 10%. Going the other way, I'm going to take my number, divide by 100, and then I am going to take 1 minus this answer. Okay. So I have 59 divided by 100 gives me 0.59. Then I'm going to do 1 minus 0.59, and I don't know that one. Which gives me 0.41. Okay. I'm going to do 1 minus 0.33, which gives me 0.67, times 100 is 67%. I'm going to do this over here. I have 8 divided by 100, which gives me 0.08. Then I'm going to take 1 minus 0.08, and it gives me 92.92. This one is telling me I've recently purchased a copy machine for my business. It cost $25,000 and it depreciates by a constant rate of 15%. So it wants to first know my decay rate as a decimal. I have 0.15. It wants to know the decay factor, so this is what we're doing on the front. I'm going to do 1 minus 0.15, and then times my answer by 100. So I have 0.85 times... No, it just wants the decay factor. No timesing by 100. My bad. Okay. It wants me to write my equation X years from now, so I have 25,000, 0.85 to the X. Then it wants me to guess the value at 8 years. So I'm going to take 8 and plug in for X. Which gives me 14,508.18. It's money, so I do 2 decimal places. It wants me to figure out when it'll be worth 12,000, so I'm going to graph the y equals 25,000. And I'm also going to graph the y equals 12,000. Then I'm going to change my window. It needs to go up to 25,000, so I'm going to make my y max 26,000. Okay. Then I'm going to go second calc, choice 5 to figure out where they cross. I press enter 3 times, and I get, this one wants me to round to 2 decimal places, so I get 4.52. This one wants me, it's telling me I inherit $3,000 and I put it into an account earning 1.8 interest. So what my starting value here is 3,000. My growth rate as a decimal, I'm going to take this number from my percent. We'll do 1.8 and divide by 100. This gets me 0.018. The number of times compounded in a year, this phrase, quarterly. How many quarters are in a year? I hope you answered. I don't know why I asked the question like I was talking to people. 4. So my n is 4. Then I want to go write the equation that gives the amount of money after 2 years. I'm going to plug, this is A, R, and N. I'm going to plug these into this equation. So I have 3,000, and then 1 is 1, plus my R, which is 0.018, over my N of 4. N gets plugged in a second time, and T is still T. E is having me figure out how much money is in after 7 years. Of course it would turn off my light. I'm not moving enough in the movie. Okay. So I need to plug in 7 for T and type it into the calculator. So I have 3,000, 1 plus 0.018 times 4 to the 7. That gives me 3,401, since it's money, 2 cents, 88. It wants me to figure out how long it'll take for my money to double. So I want to graph the y equals 3,000, 1 plus 0.018 divided by 4 to the 4x. And I'm also going to graph y equals 6,000, because that's doubled. Then I go graph it. This one should fit on this window, so I don't need to change it. long time. I do need to change my window because my X isn't big enough. I'm gonna go change it to 100. Okay, now I want to figure out where they cross. I go second calc, intersect, enter, 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 and this time they are at 38.5 years. I can spell years. Moving on. This one is telling me the population in Mesa in 2010 was 440,000. It's increasing at a rate of 1.9 per year. So my initial value is 440,000. My growth rate as a decimal is 0.019. As a growth factor, I add 1 to that, which gives me 1.019. Wants me to write the equation in this form. So I have y equals 440,000, parentheses 1.019 to the t. It wants me to figure out what this value is if as an exponent of e. So I'm going to graph y equals e to the x and y equals 1.019. For this one, I probably want to change my window to be a little bit smaller, because those are tiny numbers. I'm going to make my x max 10, my y max 10. Then I want to figure out where the red and blue lines are crossing. So I go second trace, choice 5 for intersect, enter, 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 and it wants me to give it to 4 decimal places. So I'm going to have 0.0188. Then I'm going to plug it in for x, and this is going to be, this is the new equation, y equals a to the ext. My a value is still the 440,000. E is e. I have 0.0188 t. And these ones are wanting me to decide if they're increasing or decreasing, give the initial value and the rate. So, this number inside the parentheses is more than 1, increasing. Number as an exponent with e is negative, it's decreasing. Number in the parentheses is less than 1, decrease. So I looked up these for all of those. Then my initial value is just the number out front, 100, 10.93, 503. My rate is this piece. So I'm going to do, for this one, it's 1.65 minus 1. It's 0.65 times 100, 65%. This one, I just make it into a percent, so I have 0.26 times 100, which is 26%. 55 is not an e, so I do the 1 minus 0.55, which gives me 0.45 times 100, which is 45%. 3.7 wants me to draw a scatter plot. My time is given in multiples of 10. Let me count the ones. Okay. 0, it's 160. 10, it's 310. 20, it's 380. 30 is 515. And 40 is 775. Okay. This one wants me to use the regression feature on my calculator, so I am going to go back to this to type these points in. I'm going to go Stat, Edit. If I have point values, I arrow up, I press the clear button, I arrow down, and they disappear. So now that I've done that, I can go back to this other side. To do the regression, I go Stat, I arrow over to Calc. This was exponential, so I want my choice 0. I go all the way down to the word Calculate, and I press Enter. And I'm going to round to 2 decimal places, so I have y equals 1.81, parentheses 1.04 to the x. My growth factor is the number in parentheses. So this is the 1.04. The percent increase, I take the 1.04 minus 1, which gives me 0.04, times 100, which is 4%. It's asking me hourly wage in 2015. Let me check. The graph was measuring since 1990, so I want to do 2015 minus 1990, which gives me 25. I'm going to plug in 25 in for my x at this moment. This gives me, this is money. What? Okay. It says it should be $4.83. It wants me to figure out what year the wages will be above $18 per hour. So I want to graph y equals 1.8 times 1.04 to the x, and y equals 18. Then I go to my graph. Oh, this isn't going to be big enough because my windows were at 10. You can't even see my graph. I need it to go up to probably 20. And this is not going to be enough years. I'm going to do 100. Then I find where these two intersect, so I go second trace, choice 5, enter, enter, enter. It's about 59 years. So I add that to 1990. Which gives me 2049.